Most of the time, we'll never know if a cue ever makes air until months and months later when the royalty statements show up. And true, some libraries will give you a heads up if something gets placed, and we can also check with our PRO, but even that's only accurate if the cue sheets have come in, and even then, it can be really delayed. But we're also in a golden age of AI and algorithms, and if YouTube can sniff out copyrighted music in near real time, surely there's a system out there that can track our own musical placements. I mean, what if there were robots watching all the TV all the time? Enter TuneSat, a service which can detect nearly any musical placement on TV throughout the US and EU. And while it has its limitations and can get very expensive very quickly, it can also be a really good way to see if your cue is getting traction long before your PRO ever catches wind of it. But what can we actually do with this information? And is it even worth it? Well, we're going to be talking about that today on this week's episode of the 52 Cues podcast. What is happening, everybody? This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another episode of the 52 Cues podcast, a weekly podcast dedicated to all things production and library music, where we talk about industry topics and take deep dives into the different aspects of being a working production music composer. Plus, in my Year of Taxi update, we're going to check in on any returns or forwards and take a listen to this week's submission, which is a synth drone cue. And then a little later on, I'm going to give my thoughts on a 50s rock cue written by 52 Cues community member Doug Knight, so you definitely want to stick around for that. If this is your first time here, welcome. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the audio podcast on the go, just want to thank you for spending part of your day here with me. I also want to give a huge word of thanks to the family, friends, and patrons of 52 Cues who help keep the podcast, the channel, and everything we do here going. We are 100% community supported, so you're not going to hear any ads for mattresses or meal plans, but if you want to learn more about how you can help support 52 Cues and also unlock extra perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, and a ton more, then click on the links in the description or stick around because we're going to be talking about that a little bit later in today's episode. So let's go ahead and check in on my Year of Taxi. And I have heard back from last week's synth tension, which was the kind of synth wavy tension cue, and I'm happy to report that D20 Detectives did get a forward and got some feedback from 447. 447. Oh, there was great rejoicing. We got a cue past 447, and the 447 says, "What I like most about this song: great work here, with a nice, tense, and captivating motif. I think the song could be improved by starting the arrangement at 10 seconds. Yeah, I have some intro here." About 10 seconds of intro, and this was borrowing from the reference. And one of the references had a pretty protracted intro, and I don't necessarily disagree, but for this one, I was really trying to capture the essence of that reference. And then I forwarded this instrumental because it does a good job of matching the sound and style that's heard on the references. So that was a forward. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you, 447, for D20 Detectives. Got a little bit of love. Still, that brings my total forwards to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 forwards and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 returns. And still no reach out from any of the libraries. Haven't gotten any contact from any of the libraries. And to that point, and we'll talk about this week's cue, discomfort drone, here in just a second. But I want to take a moment just to kind of talk to the taxi folks. And I feel like there's a middle ground between getting, a personalized email back from the library saying, "Oh, we've spent a lot of time listening to it and it's not right," or "It's perfect," right? I feel like that's that would be cool if we got some sort of response from the library that they listen to the cue and it's either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I feel like there's a middle ground between that and complete radio silence. I feel that, now, 14 weeks into it, every single week, and this is nothing new. I look back, I've been submitting cues up to Taxi. I think 2016 was my first Taxi. So I'm not necessarily new to this. And the vast majority of the forwards I've gotten, well, I don't want to say vast majority because I haven't done the data, and at the end of this year we will have data, but the majority of the forwards didn't get picked up by the library, which is fine. It's really okay. But not hearing anything back at all. Again, I feel like there's a middle ground between super reach out, yes, no, whatever, and the radio silence. Because fundamentally, this isn't an unsolicited submission. As soon as we pay Taxi our $5, as soon as we get a forward, we have now entered on some level, we've entered a relationship with that potential library. And so the library asking Taxi to gather cues is in the same vein as the library asking us for cues. And if a library reached out to you and said, hey, we would love for you to submit to us, then you would expect that library to give you the courtesy of just acknowledging that the cue was heard and it wasn't a fit or it was a fit. But I'm here to tell you, Taxi folks, I'm talking right to the Taxi people. And I know the logistics of it, and I know that the library potentially opening themselves up to, having people just flood their inbox saying, well, why not? Well, please listen to it again. I get all of that. I know, and I don't necessarily have a solution here. I just think there's a middle ground between the forward from Taxi and then hearing absolutely nothing from a forward. Again, I believe we're beyond the unsolicited submission phase, and I believe that there is a level of professional courtesy that could be extended. And it's not my business to figure that out. I mean, I'm not in the business to figure that out, because I'm here to tell you, Taxi folks, I spend many hours a week with 52 Qs community members, many of whom are following along with my year of Taxi. And I see it in the chat. I hear it in our Zoom sessions, whether it's during my office hours or feedback sessions or whatever. And there's a real discouragement in the community from forwards that get absolutely zero acknowledgement. And these are your customers. 52Q, we're a very, very niche thing here, right? And so we are smack dab in the middle of your target audience, your target demographic, potential customers. And it's one thing to get a forward. It's really, really exciting. But after several forwards and hearing absolutely nothing, I don't know. I feel like if a library has entered into that arrangement with you, Taxi, then I feel like there should be a little bit more consideration and courtesy given to the composers who are putting themselves out there. paying for it, paying for the service, paying for the annual subscription and the $5 per submission and all of that. And again, it feels good to get it forward, but that is quickly tempered by complete silence. So I just want to start that dialogue to see if there is something in between. All right. So yeah, that's how I feel about all of that. So I'm happy. I'm happy that D20 Detectives got a forward. For this week, I am writing a synth drone instrumental. And the listing called for synth drone instrumental cues needed by a successful boutique music library distributed by Universal Placements. That's really, really great. Universal Production Music. And so some Atticus Ross, some Christoph Beck. And so instruments should not sound like Omnisphere 2.0. Instead, I encourage composers to create some custom-made textures. Now, I take that to mean, I don't take that to mean you can't use Omnisphere. I think we have to start being a little bit more creative with Omnisphere. And I actually did this. I've been writing my own Omnisphere patches and studying a lot of what Matt Bowdler is doing over at the Unfinished, and recorded actually some airplane sounds from outside my front yard, from some overhead air traffic. And so they're going on to say, please send them well-produced drone instrumental cues that evoke an overall unsettling moody vibe and feel. And so as soon as I start seeing unsettling and moody, those are giving me context clues for the emotion that they're going for. Your submissions should have state-of-the-art synth, minimal melodic movement, and stick to a singular idea throughout to keep your cues cohesive. Incorporating some extra instrumentation like sparse percussion, pulsing bass notes or pads, muted cinematic sound design elements, etc. could work to add a subtle sense of motion, forward motion, but please be sure not to overdo it. So these aren't pulsing tension cues. Less is more for these types of instrumental cues, and be sure your productions are polished and any and all virtual sounds are high quality. This should be about 2 minutes. And here is an interesting note that upon playing my cues, my cue for the community actually helped out with looking for edit points. And in general, my experience with these types of drum tension cues is that they don't often call for really deliberate edit points because they're just slowly built. So I played mine and they were listening to it, and folks are like, a shout out to Nigel, said, hey, the brief calls for an edit point. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally flaked on that. So Nigel helping me to read the bleeping brief. All right. So, and then the brief goes on to say the company has a strong preference for composers who understand music licensing companies and how typical music library deals are structured. And this is, I think, basically to say, they want to make sure you understand the industry so that when they hit you with a contract, you don't go, what the heck is all this? You want, 50% of the royalties, blah. So it's just making sure. So the cue that I put together, this is called Discomfort Drone, like comfort zone, discomfort drone. Anyway. And so, we'll take a listen to it. There's the edit point right there. Had to go in and make some space for that. It's really challenging making these edit points in cues like this because the release tails of the pads are so protracted, and so you have to get creative with that. And so all but I think two or three sounds I created myself. I've created Omnisphere patches, whether it's bringing in samples or recording my own sounds or creating these synths. And if you want to see a complete breakdown of this cue, including those sounds and some of the source material for them and the mix and the arrangement and all of that, then that is a feature that is available to the friends and family subscribers over at 52 Cues. But we'll see if they like Discomfort Drone, and we'll go on from there. So that's it for this week's check-in for my year of taxi. Let's talk about TuneSat. Like I said in the intro, it can be really frustrating never really knowing if and when your cues get placed. And libraries might tell you, even though in my experience, that's definitely the exception and not the rule. And you might even catch things live, but most of the time, you don't know something's gotten air until the royalty statement shows up or the cue sheet shows up on your PRO. And sometimes you do see things as they air and they don't show up on your royalty statement. And you wish that there was some way that you can kind of reconcile what you know is getting air versus what you're actually getting paid for. And this is something that TuneSat looks to do. Now, if you're not familiar with TuneSat, TuneSat is a service that is a subscription service where you upload your music to their database and they create essentially kind of a fingerprint of that music, and they will track that music and detect whether that music makes air, whether it gets placed. And I can't imagine the servers and the system and the back end of all of this, because it tracks placements, it tracks TV, broadcast, cable, network, whatever across the US and the EU for what I'm assuming are hundreds of thousands of tracks. And this is what they do. And if you've not heard of it, it's at tunesat.com, TUNESAT.com. And there are a handful of other services which kind of do this. There's a SoundMouse, which I think is UK only. I think it's connected through PRS. And there's also tracktrqk.com, which is more about kind of tracking royalty statements. And I have no experience with SoundMouse or Track, but it's track.io, trqk.io. And I just wanted to put that out there. This isn't an overall like comparison of these, but I want to talk TuneSat. I've heard about TuneSat for a long time, and I've known about it and thought, hey, let's maybe we try it. Isn't it super expensive? But when I had a few tracks earlier in just this spring, I've only been at it like about a month, and I have about a month's worth of data to compare here. And I thought, you know what? I've got some cues that are going out, and I want to see if they get placed. Namely, one of the cues that got returned from Taxi Knockout Round, that epic orchestral hip hop cue, thought it could do pretty well, and so I went ahead and put it up into TuneSat. And I'm really happy with how thorough and how quickly it finds detections. It was finding detections throughout the NCAA tournament within like a day or so. So by the next morning, I could check, refresh TuneSat, and there's like a placement from the tournament from the game before or something like that. So, but let me back up a little bit. And I want to play this video. They have this video. It's about 10 years old. And just fair warning, this music, it's pretty rough. TuneSat, you have at your disposal the entire wealth of musical knowledge in the Western Hemisphere, and maybe there's a better musical choice here, but it's 10 years old. I'm not here. My apologies. Yeah, I apologize. But this is explaining TuneSat and kind of what it is.
You're a composer. Creating music is hard work, but getting paid is even harder. Every time your music is played on TV or the internet, you should be getting paid. The problem is that you're relying on someone else to report the use of your music in order to make that happen. Did you know that as much as 80% of music used on TV is never reported to rights societies? The problem is even worse on the internet, where very little music use is ever reported and more often than not, stolen. So what does this mean for you? It means that someone else is getting your money, and you're not getting the money you deserve. Since the beginning of time, music reports have been created with pen and paper by those who have little knowledge of what music is being used and little incentive to get it right. Although your music could be playing all over the world, if they don't know it, you don't know it, and you're not getting paid what you deserve. Until now, with TuneSat. Signing up is fast and easy. Get detailed reports every time your music is played on TV and the internet. Just about anywhere, anytime, every time. Finally, you are in control. If your music gets played, you now have the proof you need to get the money you deserve.
Yeah, again, that commercial's pretty rough, pretty rough. TuneSat. I would update that music personally, but I'm here to say that after about a month of trying, it works. It actually works. And we'll talk about pricing and that kind of stuff here in just a second. But I uploaded 50 tracks up to TuneSat at the beginning of March, a handful from my Discovery Channel queues, from some of the stuff that I've done with other publishers, and some of my football queues. And I was excited to see, like literally within the next day, start seeing placements. So here's a cue that I wrote a year or so ago called Bracket Buster. And when you get a placement, you get a little, not a thumbnail, but you get a clip, a snippet of that actual placement.
One of the great three-point shooting teams in the country. This guy's something else.
When you talk about three-point shooters, you got to mention this guy's name. Ashworth gets it done from three. If he gets an open look, it's always money. It's going to be imperative that Utah State finds a way.
Right. So that's one. Here's another NCAA tournament placement.
You talk about a guy that can lead the league in rebounding and scoring. You talk about somebody that's truly phenomenal, not afraid to play big. 9 rebounds a game to go along with those 20 points, and the one thing he's doing a lot better this
so that's
year,
exciting. And here is knockout round.
For the first time in 22 years, the Nittany Lion basketball team advances.
We didn't come in for just one though. Keep it rolling.
We're excited to be playing again, playing together, having fun, and that's what we've been doing.
Once you get past the first
All right,
game,
so that's really exciting. And across the U.S., here's Oprah Winfrey Network, here's HGTV, more TBS, CBS Sports, and over in the into the EU. And so here is another cue. This is called Some Enchanted Sneaking, from a show called Kitchen Impossible.
You mix the two doughs into a flatbread.
Ich meine, das ist schon ein bisschen, pardon my French, ein FU, mich da zu diesem Blutjungen.
All right, here's let's see, and so that was I believe that was one publisher. Here is Mouse in the Hizzle this was with Discovery Channel.
Problem is, I can see you wearing that now.
Yeah.
And around the house as a nightgown.
And here is another one.
Sei auch den Kindern klar geworden, dass es sich um die Bilder aus dem Kunstraub von Gotha handelt. Bruchstückhaft sei die Wahrheit ans Licht gekommen.
Als die Mutter dann schwer erkrankt.
And so the system works. The system works. And so what you do is you upload new music, you submit a cue, you submit the sound file, the description, and any other information, whether it's your PRO information. You can get really, really dense with the metadata. I didn't. I just didn't, because I was kind of testing it. You could put track title itself, album, artists, publishers, and any other custom. I just basically put my composer information, and the file name was just from the file, and just kind of let it go. And so on one hand, that's really exciting. It's really exciting to kind of keep refreshing this and see and hear placements from your cues. Here's one from just, was this just last night? Yeah, this was just yesterday.
Hold out. Hey, hey, hey. Whoa.
Sieh an, nicht isoliert.
Yeah, that was a Reef Madness over on DMAX, I'm not sure, or Vox TV, or Science Channel, HGTV, CBS Sports, ZDF, TLC, Oprah Winfrey Network. So the system itself works. But they only let you, as far as the plans, let's talk pricing. And then we'll talk about, okay, what do you do with this information? There is a free plan that allows you to upload 50 tracks. So we've got 50 tracks here and 50 detections per month. So 50 tracks and 50 detections per month. And it's limited by email address. And so I guess if you wanted to upload more, then you can, I guess, use different email addresses. I've heard of folks kind of taking a whole album's worth and making one giant file out of it, and then submitting, like, basically put all 10 tracks onto, or all 10 tracks from the album onto one sound file and uploading that single sound file. But you're still limited to the number of detections per month. For me, I took kind of a cross-section of dramedy cues, of tension music, of sports broadcasting, and just, like I said, just kind of a sampler of the different types of cues. And it's free. And I would encourage you, if you have any music placed or published, let's say published, but not quite maybe placed yet, I would encourage you to do this. It's free. Sign up, 50 tracks, and maybe start seeing some detections. Now, the premium plan starts at $35 a month. And you're like, okay, unlimited uploads, unlimited detections. All right, that's cool. Targeted searches. But it starts at this. And this is a little deceiving because it says unlimited uploads, which I guess is accurate. Unlimited detections, I guess that's also accurate. But let's dive in a little bit deeper and check out some of the pricing. You'll notice that you have territories. So you can select the US only. You can select the EU only. You can select the US and EU. Or you can build a custom plan and select the individual countries. Like if you know you don't have a publisher pushing music out to Spain or Austria or whatever, like for me, it's a lot of US, a lot of Germany that I seem to be getting, and some France. And so maybe UK, but at this point now it's like, okay, now Switzerland. All right, so maybe just European Union and the EU. But just for now, let's say just the US. Then you select the number of tracks that it's going to track. And I don't know, looking at their pricing, this is where I'm not sure if uploads means the same as tracks. That I don't know. But number of tracks. So let's say 50, which is the same amount from the free plan. 50 tracks, even though that only is limited to 50 detections. So if you have a track that's blowing up In 1 month, you hit 50 detections, it's not going to give you any more detections. All right. So let's select 50 tracks, and that is $35 a month. $35 a month for 50 tracks in just the US. All right. Okay. So let's see how much this is across just the EU. Just the EU is $75 a month to track 50 tracks in the EU. The US and EU, 50 tracks. So the same number of free tracks, but now you get unlimited detections, is $100 a month. My eyes are already watering. So let's keep it US and EU. And let's say now I want to track 100 tracks. $187 a month. Okay, all right. You see where this is going, right? Let's do 250 tracks. $400 a month. A month. And I don't see any like yearly. $400 a month. Now, I'm approaching 700 tracks. So let's say 500. Let's just keep going up the ladder here. 500 tracks a month. Do we want to take a guess? I actually don't know this number. $400 a month for 250. Let's take a guess. Let's guess if 100 tracks was 187. So I'm going to guess $600 a month to track 500 tracks. $667. Folks, that wouldn't even cover all of the tracks in my catalog. Let's keep going. How much is $750 a month? $800. 750 tracks, $800 a month. 1,000 tracks, $933. 2,500 tracks, $1,333. If you have 5,000 tracks, that is $2,000 a month. Okay, all right. At this point, we're like, well, pump the brakes. Because we have to understand, well, who's the target audience here? And what are you really getting out of this? And more importantly, what can you really do with this information? Okay. So obviously, I don't think they're expecting a single composer to pay $2,000 a month to track 5,000 tracks. At that point, we're really starting to get into libraries territory, but even still, 5,000 tracks is really small. That's a small library that has 5,000 tracks. Look, maybe not small, maybe mid-size. It's small to medium. They're definitely not large. I mean, you look at like Discovery's catalog has 700,000 tracks. And maybe there is like an enterprise solution out there. Maybe this is like super consumer focused. But let's go back to, let's say conservatively, yes, I'm coming up on 700 tracks published, individual cues, that doesn't count cut downs and stuff. But let's just roll it back and let's say 250. Like these are the 250 cues that I really, really believe are starting to get traction here. That's still $400 a month. $400 a month to track whether or not your music is getting placed. And here it begs the question, and what we have to reconcile with is, what is this information for? And who is this information for? Because unfortunately, the PROs aren't obligated to do anything with this data. And that's not to say that your PROs are like nefarious and they're not trying to like rip you off or anything. No, it's just, this is not, this data from TuneSat doesn't represent anything that they can do, or it doesn't give them anything that, how do I want to say this? Like the PROs all function from cue sheets. And how you get paid is by getting cue sheets from the network or from the production company or from the TV show or whatever. I get music on TV. It goes up on CBS. CBS fills out cue sheets. Cue sheets get sent off to the PROs. The PROs take those, tabulate them, run it through their internal math algorithm on how much you should get paid based off of ratings and all of that stuff and length of play, type of usage, blah, blah, blah. And then I get a royalty check. But cue sheets are at the absolute center of that entire process. If it's not on a cue sheet, it doesn't really exist in the PRO world. So when TuneSat has data that says this got placed, looking at this placement in Kitchen Impossible here, Some Enchanted Sneaking, I can prove unequivocally that this is my music.
It's just...
And there it is. And I can tell you the time and date and the episode that it got air on. But if it's not in a cue sheet, if that placement from Vox TV or whatever doesn't get put on a cue sheet and get sent off to the PRO, then the PRO really has no mechanism to take the TuneSat information and convert that into royalties. Again, I think the PROs want to get things right. It's in their best interest to pay composers what they're owed. But at this point, there's nothing really obligating PROs to use this data. I was happy to see that that CSAC was a partner for TuneSat. And I don't doubt that I could take this information to my CSAC representative and say, here it is. But their only recourse is really to kind of reach out and try to get a proper cue sheet. I mean, and we can talk about why it's not showing up on the cue sheet all day long. Again, I don't think there's anything wonky and nefarious going on here. It's no big giant conspiracy trying to keep composers from getting paid. So if I can't really do anything with this information other than point to it, like hold a sign and go, here it is, CSAC, here it is, ASCAP, BMI, or whatever. And this is what TuneSat doesn't really talk about in their materials. Like, how can we use this? What can we do with it? And so it doesn't really tell us like how to leverage this information other than just kind of showing it to your PRO and saying, see? So what is it really for? Or let me say this another way. And maybe I'm just too early on it. And if you use TuneSat, please let me know. But let me tell you how I use it. I use it first for credits, for IMDb credits. Love seeing, something get air. I'm like, hey, I didn't know that I had placements because it hasn't showed up. Now, what was the name of the show? I just saw it come through. The Flipping Delays. That's the episode name. The Flipping El Musas. Never heard of that show, but I'm getting air on that. Got a couple of placements. Here's an episode of How the Universe Works. It's cool. Yes. I want to put that on my IMDb. That's great. But I'm not paying $400 a month for 250 tracks just so I can pad out my IMDb page. No, that's terrible use of money. $400 a month. It's like $5,000 a year. Oh my gosh. Just to track these. So being able to find cues that are getting used and put them on into your IMDb. I think that's great. And a good usage of free. Yes, that's absolutely worth it. The time it takes to upload those. Also, to see if you've gotten cues that are getting placed at all. Like I knew that I believed in Knockout Round, that epic orchestral hip hop cue. I believed in it and I felt like it could get used. And so I put it up into TuneSat, hoping that it would get traction, and it did get placements. And so that kind of tells me, all right, this is kind of on the right track. And if you have enough cues bouncing around out there in your TuneSat, then you can kind of see, okay, this cue is getting placed, this is getting placed. These are the things that are actually getting used, which could inform your compositional choices moving forward. Okay, I'm going to make more of these types of cues now. Can you do that with just 50 tracks? Probably not. I don't, that might not, unless you kind of rotated them out. You know, if you had, okay, here's a brand new album and let's see if it gets traction. And I actually did that. Had an album recently published with the publisher, not Discovery or CBS, another publisher I've started working with. And I just want to see. I want to see if that's getting some love, and it is. And so that's really exciting. It's really exciting. And it tells me that A, these cues are working, and B, that publisher is doing their part of the gig. I've said how publishers are partners. They're just on the other side of the boat, rowing in the same direction. Well, when you start seeing that publisher land placements through a service like TuneSat, then you can prove that, hey, that publisher is doing their fair share of the rowing. And that's encouraging. But if you've got a publisher that you're working with and you put it all up on TuneSat and you let it cook for a while, and after months and months, you get no placements or no detections, then I don't think don't go in and start like table flipping and raging out on your publisher, but I think it's a place to start the conversation. Hey, publisher, it's good to see you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate all of your help through all of this. I've had this album listed up on TuneSat for the last year, and I haven't gotten any detections. Let's talk about why. Either their network isn't really that broad, or maybe the album isn't just isn't resonating, or maybe they don't have the sales staff or whatever. Again, it's not about raging out on your library. It's about arming yourself with information that then you can use, just like you would take that information and go to your PRO if you got a placement. If you're not getting placements, you can use that information as well. And I think that is a fantastic use of TuneSat. But what TuneSat is selling is get paid for your placements. And that's where I think the mechanism that doesn't exist, that I know of. Again, if you've used TuneSat or SoundMouse or any of these other services, I would love to hear from you. Because as it is right now, beyond informational purposes, I don't know of a direct way that you can leverage TuneSat into royalties. It would be great if, to be honest, I think the PROs should have this technology already in place. I think this is the future of what PRO services should be offering. Composers shouldn't have to pay for this service because this is part of their business. PROs are in the business to collect royalties from or collect dues and payments from networks, production companies using music, and then based off of the placements, then they generate the royalties. And right now, it's kind of a big old honor system. And it's been an honor system forever. but the technology exists, and TuneSat didn't just come out, right? TuneSat's been around a while, but the technology exists that PROs can already sort out and find, or the technology exists to automatically detect placements with a forensic level of detail. Some of these placements, let's see, my shortest one, there's 13 seconds. Here's a 7-second placement. Is that my shortest one? Here's another 7-second placement on Love and Marriage DC. There's a 9-second, another 7-second placement. Let's hear and see if there's anything shorter than 7 seconds. Let's hear what 7 seconds sounds like.
Because you could try them too.
I get to, no, stop, see.
So what happened at this wig event that I had?
All right. Now, was it a 7-second placement or was that just 7 seconds of detection? Let's listen to another 7 seconds. That might be actually the same placement.
Need to get their butts upstairs because I have to drop the tea. So,
yeah, the placement itself might be longer, but the technology exists to listen through all the dialogue and everything and detect the music placements. So I believe that PROs this should be what is offered as part of the PRO service. They should be investing. They should be partnering with services like TuneSat. But if TuneSat's offering like $4,000, $2,000 a month, I'm sorry, for the US and EU, $2,000 a month. Yeah, that's completely untenable. And I don't know what the partnership looks like. I know that CSAC is a partner with TuneSat, and I know other publishers, Warner Chappell, the Lodge, the Orange Music Company, Universal. So these other companies are partnering with them, but let's figure out a way that this doesn't get put on the composers, and let's let TuneSat and these other libraries and PROs partner together to raise the royalties across the board. I mean, if you really want to get like conspiracy theory about it, like do the PROs like really want that? Because do I want to say this? Like if things go underreported, then that's less royalties that are getting paid. Now this gets into like conspiracy. I'm not even going to cut this out. It's where your mind goes, because in the lack of information, then you have a tendency, or I have a tendency, society has a tendency to kind of substitute the worst case scenario. And I just don't believe that. I just don't, I don't want to, I can't believe that that's all like nefarious. I just think there are so many moving parts from getting your music from your computer onto television. It changes a lot of hands. There are a lot of decision makers. There's a lot of gates to jump through. And there's just a lot of moving parts. And so it's more likely things just fall through the cracks than somebody intentionally not wanting your royalties to get paid out to you. I think that's more likely. The fact that it's just so many moving parts. But I would love to see PROs and libraries really shoulder the financial burden of this. And what that would mean for us, the composer, does that mean we're paying more dues? I don't know, but I think it's worth talking about. Regardless, if you have music published, go to TuneSat.com, and I'm not affiliated with TuneSat or anything. Go to TuneSat.com and upload 50 tracks. You literally have nothing to lose. Just don't necessarily expect to be able to get your placements and go, with your proof, go running into your PRO and demanding royalties, because it's probably not going to happen. However, if you have a relationship with a publisher and you're like, hey, this is really doesn't seem to be working, then TuneSat could be a really, really, really good choice for you. So that's what I think of TuneSat, having been really at it just a month, but in 1 month, 50 tracks uploaded across my entire catalog, getting 47 detections in 1 month. I don't think that's too terrible. And maybe if I was more focused on entire albums and specifics, but like I said, I was just really going for a broad sampler of my music. But I would love to hear from you. Do you use TuneSat? Do you find it helpful? Have you had any luck taking TuneSat information to your PRO and getting some kind of movement based off of TuneSat detections that did not show up on your royalty statements? I would love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. I do read all those comments, and I make an effort to at least heart them and reply to them. I would love to hear from you. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to hear from Mrs. 52Qs, who's going to tell us all about the community and how you can join. And when we come back, we're going to be checking out a 50s rock cue written by 52Q's community member and fellow Full Sail staff member, Doug Knight.
Hey y'all, I'm Shannon Croft, and I want to tell you that the 52Qs podcast is made possible by viewers and listeners just like you, composers and producers who are looking for a better way to connect and collaborate. You see, 52Qs isn't just another website selling static, pre-recorded videos to a mass audience. It's a fun, vibrant, and positive community that comes together online for sharing cues, getting feedback, and discussing what's up in the production music industry. You'll find both personalized feedback and live interaction, which are the best and fastest ways to grow your skills and earn more placements. The best part is that the 52Qs community is absolutely free. And when you're ready to take your career to the next level, we offer friends and family subscriptions, which unlock weekly live streams, live interactive group feedback sessions, monthly interactive workshops, and more. Head over to 52qs.com and sign up today. And while you're there, check out our personalized feedback videos, private lessons, and of course, merch. I can't wait to see you at 52qs.com.
That was Potsie's theme by Doug Knight. Potsie, if you are under the age of 45 or 50 or so, you probably don't know who Potsie is. Potsie is a character from Happy Days, which is really funny that the name Potsie comes up because Shannon and I are in the middle of our Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch, and Anson Williams, the actor who played Potsie, is a director, and he's directed episodes of Star Trek before. Random kind of universal mind map connections. But thank you so much for sending this along. I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, Doug, dude, your stuff is just top drawer. I really appreciate you sending this along. If I had any comments on this, I think the drums could pop a little bit more, the snare drum especially. I don't know, the snare drum could crack a little bit more. It seems a little. But everything is really working here. This kind of boogie woogie 50s era rock or so, where you have the boom, 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 boom. It's essentially a blues form, and trading off between the piano into the guitar. I think this is all really, really working. I don't see Taxi returning this and then handing it off to the piano. The hi-hat, again, I'm just drilling down on the percussion stuff. Yeah, the hi-hat was a little too, and I don't know. I feel like it just the groove just needs to lay back just a little bit, maybe. And then I would probably not keep the hat time. Felt like the foot pedal of the hat through these stops. I would either just completely stop and not do the hi-hat, because you're going ba-dum, and it sounds like it's with the foot. If you're going to keep a foot, just keep the foot playing 2 and 4 throughout this section right here. But I think it'd be better served just to do this section in the clear. And I would switch up in this little part right here what the snare drum is doing. It's kind of playing the exact same fill every time. Here it's playing the exact same little pickup each time. And it's very, very rare for drummers to play the exact same fill every single time. So you might be able to do you know, something like that. But really, I think this is all absolutely working. I am just being super nitpicky about percussion stuff, the same way I would imagine a guitarist would kind of drill in. Like the addition of the claps here. And again, I think they could also just, I don't know if it just needs a little bit more parallel compression so the snares and the claps really crack. Perfect. This is so well done, and like I said, I don't see Taxi returning this. This was submitted up into our weekly feedback thread for week 15. Doug, thank you so much for sending this along. We put feedback threads together every single week, and so if that's something that you would be interested in, then head over to 52cues.com and submit. Right now, we are gathering cues for week 16, and I will be selecting one of these cues for consideration or to play next week on the podcast. And if you enjoyed that feedback and you would like really in-depth feedback of your own cues, then head over to 52cues.com/coaching and order up your own feedback video, and I will unpack the music theory side of things, the EQ, the mix, the mastering, song structure, melody, and all of that, then again, head over to 52cues.com/coaching. And while you're there, you can also check out my one-on-one coaching services, along with signing up for getting a notification of when we crank up our summer mastermind. But that's going to do it for me today. Once again, thank you so much to the friends, family, and patrons for your support. We wouldn't be able to do any of this without your help. You definitely want to tune in next week, where I am doing another Q&A episode. Every few months or so, we put a thread up in the 52Qs community asking for questions. So if you have questions that you would like answered, then head over to 52cues.com into the community and ask the question, and I will be answering them next week. But I hope you had a fantastic week 15, and I know that your week 16 is going to be great. How do I know this, friends? Because I know, trust, and believe that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52Qs podcast is copyright 2023 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community and submitting your cue for consideration on the podcast, head over to 52cues.com.